Hi, this is Karen from Our Home Projects. Today I wanted to talk you through how I designed our garden room. I know many designers on YouTube use a program called SketchUp to design their garden rooms. My background is actually IT, but I still found it difficult to learn and was wasting far too much time on it. So then I thought about using Microsoft Excel. Now I know this seems like a funny bit of software to use, but it did in fact allow me to design and cost my entire garden room before it was built. Well, it gave me a cost for all of the immediate materials, such as the timber, the insulation, the vapor barriers, the rubber roof, etc., but not all the screws and the nails and the fixings, because that number, I just had no idea what they would be. We had a budget in mind, and this method actually reassured me that I'd finish the project within budget. We wanted the garden room to be as large as it could possibly be within the UK planning policies and building regulations. So let's look at these a bit more closely. The key point for building regulations for outbuildings is the internal floor area. Here, where the red arrow is, you can see that as long as the building contains no sleeping accommodation and is more than a metre away from our boundary, we can build something between 15 and 30 square metres internal space, and it will not require building regulations. The key point for planning permission and outbuildings for our situation is also marked here in red. The outbuilding must be single-storey with an eaves height of 2.5 metres, and a roof no taller than 4 metres for a dual-pitched roof or 3 metres for any other roof. The point in blue also applies. If the outbuilding is within 2 metres of the boundary, then it must be no taller than 2.5 metres. However, in our case, we were able to build 2 metres from the boundary and get that all-important height of 3 metres. This decision is mostly based on the fact I wanted the ease of building a warm roof construction and therefore needed that extra height. Even though my building wouldn't have to comply with building regulations, as the garden room was going to be mainly used as an office 5 days a week and then as a small gym and TV room, I wanted to make it just as insulated as a room in the house would be. So, on my second tab in this spreadsheet, I copied in some information to do with span tables and king span U values. You can see in this table that the domestic building regs for 2020 are very tough. No way am I going to get down to these values. So then I looked at the non-domestic regs and I thought that they would be achievable. After all, this is just an outbuilding. The lines highlighted are what I decided to go with. In all 3 cases for the roof, walls and floor, 120mm thick PIR insulation would get me pretty close to the non-domestic building regs U values. Plus, this meant I could buy a big batch of 120mm insulation and use it across all of the areas, therefore reducing my waste. Now that I know the thickness of insulation I need, it looks like much of the structure will be done in 2x5s. So what span does a C24 piece of 2x5 have? When I look at my span table, I can see that for the greatest load, which I want to bear in mind as I'd like to have heavy gym equipment in one corner, a C24 2x5 at 400 centres will span 2.42 metres. The lightest load will span 2.82 metres. So this information dictates the distance between my piers. When I look at the roof joist span table, I really don't want them to be larger than 2x8s. As I have a height restriction of 3 metres for my room, anything larger than a 2x8 would push me over. So when I look at the 2x8 span versus loading, I can see that the maximum span for the lightest load is 4.79 metres. Other than access for a bit of maintenance, the only heavy load throughout the year would be snow, and this doesn't hang around for too long down here in the southeast in the UK. So I'm happy with the 2x8s, and that dictates my greatest span as 4.7 metres. So now that I have some parameters to think about, I can put together my garden room shape. I drew out a rough perimeter with a maximum depth of 4.7 metres because of the roof joists. I then worked out the length of my back wall so that I would stay under the magic 30 square metres of internal floor space for the building regs compliance. This was roughly 7 metres wide. Great, so now I have the shape and size of the room I wanted to build. I then needed to look more closely at its components and build-up. At this point, I'd like to give a shout out to Ali Dimmock. I wouldn't have been able to build this room if it wasn't for his detailed videos, so hop over to his channel and take a look. I actually pinched this components idea from him, but I've developed it further for my own design. This is a really great way to visualize all of the different layers. It starts with my dense block at the bottom, then my 120mm base, then 18mm ply on top. Next is the wall makeup with the bottom plate, the stud and the double header. The rafters then sit on this, and the warm roof setup includes the 18mm OSB on top of the rafter, then the 120mm PIR insulation, then 11mm OSB on top of that, and then finished with a 1mm rubber roof. As I built this in Excel, it has allowed me to play about with the different combinations of figures so I can clearly see how tall my building is, how tall are the eaves, how tall the warm roof section is, etc. I know this is a lot of information to take in, so I'm going to speed up with this next part. This is the point I started mapping out my framing on the different sheets within Excel. I created one for the base, one for each of the sides, and one for the roof. Not only could I work out each of my lengths of wood mathematically, but I could also work out how many pieces I'd get out of 4.8 metre length, for example. I could also work out my noggins. This then meant I could cost the whole job as far as the timber, the insulation, and the OSB went before it was built. Here is my base design. It's not to scale, it's just representative due to the limitations of Excel. Over on the right, I was then able to work out all of my cuts and costings for the base. This is the back wall design, along with the left and the right walls, and finally the front wall. This was the most complicated as it has a recessed set of sliding doors, plus a corner tall window. I learned all of my framing from Ali's videos. Lastly, the most complicated design for me was the roof. It has a slight overhang over the doors. I then needed to encompass a perimeter all the way around so that I could attach my 2x3 lip to extend the roof out enough for my battens and cladding. I actually hit an issue with this design during the build, but this was down to the fact I didn't realise I needed double battens for vertical cladding. I'd only accounted for single battens, so I did change the cladding design, but you'll see more on this during that video. To wrap everything up, I created links from each of my pages, taking the numbers of pieces of wood, OSB, etc. over to a master costings page, and it totted everything up for me so that I could see if I remained within my budget. Lastly, as this video has audio, I'd just like to say a huge thanks to all my viewers and subscribers. I cannot believe that my small channel has helped so many others with their build ideas. It really has been appreciated. Many thanks, and see you next time.